MSW Media.
News with swearing. Daily beans, daily beans. Daily beans, daily beans.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Beans for Tuesday, November 25th, 2025. Today, the indictments against Letitia James and Jim Comey have been dismissed after a judge ruled Lindsay Halligan is dumb. No, she was unlawfully appointed. A Turning Point USA and former Republican representative in Arizona has pled guilty to attempted election fraud. Corporate media is finally acknowledging that the Republicans have a Nazi problem. Multiple judges rebuked the government's methods of defending invasive trans healthcare subpoenas. Doge is disbanding 8 months before its charter expires. Twitter's new location transparency feature revealed popular MAGA accounts are actually foreign. Pete Hegseth is threatening to recall Mark Kelly to active duty to court-martial him. Multiple Republican House members are thinking about resigning after MTG announced she's stepping down a year early. And the former Department of Justice lawyer that was caught on hidden camera telling his hinge date that Republican names would be redacted from the Epstein files is suing the government for wrongful termination. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Dana Goldberg.
My goodness, almost another record-setting day of headlines. How are you, my friend?
I am good. I'm happy to be back with you. Thanks for covering me while I was in flight. Had a great gala for a new organization I'm working with called True Evolution. And it is an incredible organization in the Inland Empire in California that helps with housing. Housing for LGBTQ people and helping them find permanent housing and having that transition period taken care of. They over the course of their inception, 10,000 nights they have covered to make sure that people were housed. And they've had over 5,000 clients. I know. In an extraordinary community they built out there. It was just an honor to be a part of it.
And I also saw videos, and I directed everyone to your Instagram at DG Comedy to check out videos of your Out 100 party. I saw you with SJ and just incredible photo after photo and some great videos. It looks like you had an amazing time.
I did. So thank you to everyone who voted during that. I know that whether they just appointed me or whether it was a vote from you all, it definitely helped get me there. But I got to meet some of my heroes, which was really wonderful. Like AG was talking about, SJ is that non-binary person that worked for the Forest National Park. So they were the one that climbed up to El Capitan in Yosemite. And with the help of Patty Gonia, who's an incredible queen, they put that giant trans flag up. And then unfortunately, the federal government, even though SJ did it on their time off, on their off hours, said that it was a violation and they fired them from the National Park Service. So they're going to have their new endeavors. But it was just really, these are people that are really pushing back hard against this administration and these bullshit anti-DEI policies they have. And it was nice to be with them. And of course, our dear friend Kathy Griffin got Advocate of the Year award. And so it was wonderful to see her. She's just immense. She's really lovely in person. If you ever get a chance to go to one of Kathy's shows, do it. She's awesome.
Well, fantastic and well-deserved, my friend. And we're going to talk a little bit today about some stories that are flying under the radar with judges pushing back against these really anti-trans invasive medical subpoenas, subpoenaing medical records from hospitals for trans youth and transgender minors. And there's a lot, like all these judges are pushing back. And the Department of Justice got caught again lying to the court in a briefing about the justification for these subpoenas. So we're going to talk about that later in the show. I'm going to be talking with Adam Klasfeld from All Rise News. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of Lindsay Halligan, unlawfully appointed as interim U.S. attorney, and therefore Judge Curry, who's from South Carolina, a Clinton appointee. She dismissed the cases against Jim Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James today. So
yes, she did.
I covered that pretty broadly with Adam, and also I wrote it up so you can read it and read the pertinent parts over at MullerSheWrote.com. But a big win for rule of law today in those dismissals.
Yep. I'm so glad to see it. And Comey, I have my issues with James Comey over the years, as I think most of us listening to this podcast do.
Not a fan.
But he gave a pretty wonderful statement when he found out that this case had been thrown out. So if you get a chance, you can always search for that and just listen to his words. If you can handle hearing his voice, you may still be angry about, Hillary Clinton, as most of us will be. But at least this is done in justice. In this particular case was served.
Yeah, I wish he had opened with, I realize I'm partly here because of myself. But I just want to, I wish he would acknowledge that.
I realize this is part of my doing.
Yeah. All right. We have so many headlines to get to, as you could tell by the top of the show, by the introduction. So let's start with some quick hits.
And to make a long story short, too late.
All right. First up from NBC, over the weekend, Twitter users noticed that clicking on an account's join date now opens a tab that shows the country or region in which the account is located. As soon as it appeared live for users, Twitter was flooded with viral posts showing that numerous high-engagement MAGA-branded accounts that present themselves as those of patriotic Americans appear to instead be based overseas, including in Eastern Europe, Thailand, Nigeria, and Bangladesh. Twitter then disabled the feature very quickly.
Of course they did.
Saying, it must be because of VPNs. And the intention is to re-roll out the feature in the coming days.
All right, we'll see what happens with that. This one's also from NBC. The Department of Defense said Monday that it's opening an investigation into Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. This whole thing is bullshit, by the way. He's a retired Navy captain. They're doing this in connection with the video he and very prominent other Democrats recorded, urging members of the military and the intelligence community to not comply with illegal, that's the key word there, illegal orders from Trump. Now, a thorough review of allegations has been initiated to determine further actions, which could include recalling him to active duty for court-martial proceedings or administrative measures. The problem there is that Kegseth is just doing what Trump wants him to do. This whole fucking thing is unconstitutional. You, by law, by the Constitution, are not supposed to follow illegal orders from the President of the United States. And not any order coming from Trump is a legal order, which is what Caroline Leavitt would like you to think.
Yeah. And by the way, none of them even said the name Trump. He was just like, my orders are lawful.
Yep. And that you're right. Not in the whole video. They just said you don't have to. In fact, you're not supposed to.
Yeah. So, hey, maybe you could get Lindsay Halligan to indict him. Oh, no, she's not the U.S. attorney anymore. That's too bad. And there may be more House resignations coming soon, Dana. A senior House Republican who wishes to remain anonymous told Punchbowl News, quote, this entire White House team has treated all members like garbage. All. And Mike Johnson has let it happen because he wanted it to happen. That is a statement of nearly all appropriators, authorizers, hawks, doves, rank and file. The arrogance of this White House team is off-putting to members who are run roughshod and threatened. Okay, these are Republicans. I'm reading them precisely here. They don't even allow little wins like announcing small grants or even responding from agencies. Not even the high profile, the regular rank and file random members are more upset than ever. Members know they are going into the minority after the midterms. More explosive early resignations are coming, this person said. It's a tinderbox. Morale has never been lower. Mike Johnson will be stripped of his gavel and they will lose the majority before this term is out.
Damn.
That is what a Republican, by the way, a senior House Republican told Punchbowl News.
I love to see it. Love to see it. And this one's from Reuters. U.S. President Trump's Department of Government Efficiency has disbanded. I wonder they got all the information they needed from us. Also, maybe have covered up, I don't know, election interference. With 8 months left in its mandate, ending an initiative launched with fanfare as a symbol of Trump's pledge to slash the government's size, but which critics say delivered few measurable savings. Literally, and this is a quote, that doesn't exist. Office of Personnel Management's director, Scott Cooper, told Reuters earlier this month when asked about DOJ's status. Literally, he said that doesn't exist. But then Amy Gleason, remember Amy who was in charge of that? And she didn't even know it. She was on vacation and they were like, Amy Gleason would know the answer to this. And she was like, wait, who? What? Who might still be the administrator of DOJ? Posted on social media that DOJ is, and I quote, still in effect, using a meme. That's it.
Yeah, you know what? For the Beans talk, maybe I should wear my Who is the Administrator of Doge sweatshirt. I made myself one, and I got one for Anna Bauer, too.
Well done, my
It says
friend.
Wittoed on the front of it. All right, those are the quick hits. Very interesting times we're in right now. We have a lot more news to get to, but we're going to take a quick break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hey, everybody, if you're like me, your skin needs extra care right now in the winter. Cold winds, holiday rush. My skin is dry, it's papery, it's crepey, it's flaky, it's stressed out, and that's why I've stuck with OneSkin. I love OS One Face because it fits my routine. It keeps delivering real results. The skincare and longevity benefits are noticeable, and honestly, I don't want to go without them this season. At the core is their patented OS One peptide, the first ingredient proven to target senescent cells, the root cause of wrinkles, crepiness, and loss of elasticity, all key signs of aging. And these results have now been validated in 5 different clinical studies. We're loving OneSkin, and we want to thank them for sponsoring this episode. And we have a discount for you. Go to oneskin.co/dailybeans and use the code dailybeans for 15% off. Now, I have reactive skin, so I read labels very closely. OneSkin is certified safe for sensitive skin, dermatologist tested. It's free from more than 1,500 harsh or irritating ingredients, and that gave me the confidence to try it. I figured it would be gentle, and I was right. The surprise was a real change in texture and steady, healthy looks that lasted all day. No sting, no redness, no tingling, just balanced, youthful-looking skin. Their limited edition holiday sets make great gift giving. The Nightly Rewind gift set is my pick. Inside, you get the best-selling face moisturizer, the brand new peptide lip mask, and sculpting gua sha tool. And these are all designed to work with your skin as it enters into its nightly repair mode, helping renew, like at the cellular level, for stronger, smoother, more elastic, snap-back skin for a youthful-looking complexion. So for a limited time, try OneSkin for 15% off using Daily Beans at oneskin.co/dailybeans. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard from them. Please support the Daily Beans and tell them we sent you. Everybody, welcome back. It's time for the Hot Notes. Hot Notes. All right, first up from the Arizona Mirror. Oh, my God. Former Republican state legislator Austin Smith. Austin pled guilty Monday to what he previously called ludicrous charges, that he personally forged more than 100 signatures on his petitions for re-election.
Why do all of these T's look exactly the same in cursive?
These are ludicrous. The Republican from Surprise, that's fitting.
Surprise, you're
Surprise,
guilty.
you're indicted. From Surprise, Arizona, was a member of the far-right Arizona Freedom Caucus, which has a history of spreading false claims of election fraud in the 2020 presidential election and pushed for election law changes in the state legislature. Smith pled guilty to 1 count of attempted fraudulent schemes and practices, and this is an undesignated offense, and to 1 count of illegal signing of an election petition, which is a misdemeanor. At the time he was indicted, Smith was a strategic director of Turning Point Action, Turning Point USA's advocacy arm. TPUSA is a far-right organization based in Phoenix that aims to mobilize young conservatives, founded by Charlie Kirk, who was shot and killed in a school shooting in September while speaking to a group of college students in Utah. A Maricopa County grand jury indicted Smith on June 2nd for 4 felony counts of presenting documents he knew were forged to the Arizona Secretary of State's office and 10 misdemeanor counts of personally forging the names of electors himself. Smith pled guilty to the reduced charges as part of a plea agreement that gives him the possibility of avoiding a felony conviction, because in Arizona law, when a person without a criminal history is found guilty of a low-level felony, the judge can wait until that person's probation is finished before designating the crime a felony or a misdemeanor. Essentially, that means if Smith completes any probation he's sentenced to without any violations, like stop breaking the law, his conviction could be classified as a misdemeanor instead of a felony. What do you want to bet? You want to bet he makes it?
Nope.
That's important because felons in Arizona can't vote, and they can't hold elected office until their rights are restored by a judge. Per the plea agreement, Smith is to be sentenced to probation, a fine of at least $5,500, and will be banned for 5 years from seeking public office. But according to the Attorney General, some terms of the plea agreement are non-binding and could be rejected by the sentencing judge.
All right. Thank you so much, Allison. This one's from the Times. Now, for years, Jewish Republicans often denied that the right had a serious problem with anti-Semitism, pointing instead to anti-Jewish bigotry on the left and celebrating Trump's support for Israel. But now that problem is staring them directly in the face. Tensions over anti-Semitism in the party, free speech, and Israel have burst to the forefront of GOP politics, and they show signs of becoming a fierce point of contention in the 2026 primary races and beyond. The Fuhrer. The Fuhrer? That sounds right.
It?
If you're talking about Trump, the Fuhrer has reached the highest levels of government. That's literally the sentence. I know it's not spelled the same way, but
Der
man,
Fuhrer
is that on point.
No. It's the
Fuhrer, like the anger. Has reached the highest levels of government, with Trump this past week defending Tucker Carlson for conducting a friendly interview with white nationalist Nick Fuentes, who has expressed admiration for Hitler and Stalin. Some Republicans, by the way, who has also had dinner at Mar-a-Lago, even though he was just apparently a guest of Yee's, Kanye West. Anyway, some Republicans are now finding themselves in the extraordinary position of clarifying what long seemed obvious. Nazis are evil. And I quote, "It's something that we all should know, but the fact of the matter is it has to be said." That's Representative David Gustav of Tennessee, explaining why he felt the need to denounce Nazis and anti-Semitism at a recent gathering of the Republican Jewish Coalition. He was joined there by Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who declared, "I am in the Hitler sucks. I'm in the Hitler sucks wing of the Republican Party."
Oh, so there's a Hitler rocks wing of the Republican Party? Is that what you're saying, Lindsay?
There sure is. And even Laura Loomer, the far-right activist, that's who I was talking about on Stephanie Miller. She happens to be Jewish, has argued on social media that the GOP has a Nazi problem. The Heritage Foundation, who is behind all the horror in this country, the conservative think tank that wields broad influence in the Republican Party, has been plunged into turmoil after the release of a video by the organization's president, Kevin Roberts, defending Mr. Carlson. A board member resigned this past week over Mr. Roberts' refusal to retract the video.
Oops.
Yep, these issues are already beginning to shape the earliest stages of the 2028 presidential race. J.D. Vance, a likely presidential candidate, has said in the past that he opposes Mr. Fuentes, but he has come under fire for his recent silence on Mr. Carlson. J.D. Vance has, by the way, aggressively defended Mr. Carlson's son, who happens to be an aide in the vice president's office, against online attacks, saying he has zero tolerance for scumbags attacking my staff. And J.D. Vance also said that talk of "we love Hitler and we're Nazis" was just kids being kids.
Right.
At a Turning Point USA event last month, JD's did not push back when an attendee who described himself as a Christian man falsely suggested that Judaism openly supports the prosecution of Christianity. JD Vance stayed fucking silent. His office declined to comment on that as well.
Oh, well, the GOP has a Nazi problem and it's staring them right in the face. Who could have seen this coming?
Maybe us.
Yeah, me. Hello. All right, this is some good news from Chris Geidner, who writes the Substack called Law Dork. One part of the Trump administration's multi-pronged attack on transgender people has repeatedly hit a roadblock this fall, as at least 4 federal judges have blocked portions of, or the entirety of, the Justice Department's invasive subpoenas is served in June on 20 providers of gender-affirming medical care for trans minors. The most recent of those rulings came on November 21st in a challenge brought by Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And while the subpoenas and 3 public rulings have received news coverage in recent months, a significant aspect of multiple rulings has gone underreported until now. 2 federal judges have directly questioned the actions of the Justice Department lawyers involved in the cases. In issuing his November 21st ruling, U.S. District Judge Mark Kearney expressed concern with the veracity of a declaration submitted by the Justice Department in seeking to justify the subpoena of the Philadelphia hospital, and noted that the Justice Department lawyers, quote, recognize false statements may be subject to a perjury investigation. Last month, meanwhile, U.S. District Judge Jamal Whitehead stated that the Justice Department's efforts to submit a different declaration in a challenge before him represented either a fundamental misunderstanding or a deliberate misuse of the court's procedures. His extremely rare comments from multiple federal judges are both signs of the growing frustration from the bench about the unprofessionalism of the Justice Department in the second Trump administration under the leadership of Pamela Joe, and more evidence of the overly aggressive and ultimately illegal way the administration is attacking transgender people. The subpoenas seek extensive, detailed, invasive information about the providers of gender-affirming medical care for trans minors, including their employees, communications, and their patients. Because Judge Kearney, an Obama appointee, earlier ordered the Justice Department to turn over information about any other challenges to their subpoenas, we know that challenges have been raised in at least 6 of them, Dana. The news came in Kearney's lengthy ruling, tossing out the patient-centered requests in the subpoena served on the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. 3 provisions that, as Kearney wrote, involve exceptional privacy interests. Public rulings have now been issued as to all 3 of those challenges. U.S. District Judge Myung-Joon's opinion siding with Boston Children's Hospital in Massachusetts, Jamal Whitehead's opinion siding with QueerDoc in Washington State, and Judge Kearney's ruling in Pennsylvania. Then a second challenge had been filed by patients of the Philadelphia hospital once they learned of the subpoena. However, and the DOJ, in responding to that second challenge, they actually submitted a declaration purporting to provide a proper purpose for the subpoena. But that declaration, written by Lisa Hassau, the acting director of the Department of Justice's Enforcement and Affirmative Litigation Branch, included a lie that a lawsuit was filed by a trans minor who was put on puberty blockers.
Wow.
That lawsuit, Dana, doesn't exist.
Nope, not surprising.
And the judge in this case, Judge Kearney, wrote in an endnote of the inconsistency in Hassau's declaration, noting that the original, with its lawsuit claim, was submitted under penalty of perjury. And he also said that maybe that particular lie might be subject to a perjury investigation.
I sure the fuck hope so. I'm telling you, with the special election that we saw and everything else that's been going on in this country, people are sick and fucking tired of the lies about the transgender community. They're tired about them trying to go against HIPAA and get the personal information of these children, of these kids and their family members. Like, it's all insane. I knew they were going to overstep. They're starting to do it. And I think the general public is starting to be like, this doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me. What affects me are the grocery prices. What affects me are, all of these things that they can actually put on paper. They have receipts, literal receipts from grocery stores. And finally, and I'm so sorry the damage it has caused until now and will continue to cause, but I really do feel like the tide is starting to turn. I really do.
And Dana, I covered a story yesterday while you were out that school boards across the nation were swept with progressive candidates. And the exit polling showed that people were sick and tired of hearing about people dressed as pets using litter boxes in the bathroom, or that transgender kids can't play soccer or use the bathroom of their gender identity. And they were like, we're tired of that. We want to talk about how we can better prepare our kids for the next level of education. And that is one of the main reasons that all of these, Moms for Liberty people and right-wing MAGA identity politics people were swept out. They were swept out in massive numbers across the country.
Sorry I missed that story, but I'm happy to hear it. This one's from Politico. A veteran Justice Department official fired after being caught in a video sting criticizing the agency's handling of the Epstein files has sued Monday to demand reinstatement to his post. Joseph Schnitt, who helped oversee DOJ's witness protection program, claims his First Amendment rights were violated when Attorney General Bondi, Pam Jo Bondi, abruptly fired him in September after a conservative group published surreptitiously recorded video of him predicting that the department would take a partisan approach to disclosures about the well-connected convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. And I quote, they'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal Democratic people in those files. This is what Schnitt said in a video published in September by conservative provocateur James O'Keefe. Now, the video also depicted Schnitt declaring that the recent transfer of convicted Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell to a minimum security prison, that it violated policy for sex offenders and amounted to, and I quote, offering her something to keep her mouth shut.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows that.
Yeah, I know. Bondi fired him, okay? He fired Schnitt. He's the acting deputy chief of the witness security program of the DOJ. This was one day after his comments were posted online. She cited his, and I quote, publicly inappropriate comments that were detrimental to the interests of the department. It's devastating in my case, and said he was being dismissed under the Constitution and laws of the United States, including President Donald Trump's authority as head of the executive branch. Now, Schnitt's lawsuit says Bondi fired him despite his insistence that he had no direct knowledge of the Epstein or Maxwell prosecutions or the department's response to public and congressional calls for the release or related records held by prosecutors in the FBI. And I quote, had he possessed any information about the topic through his official duties, he never would have said anything. That was his attorney, Mark Zaid. He wrote that in the court complaint. and went on to say, but like most people in the United States, it was a topic he was familiar with and seemingly normal to discuss, especially within the region of Washington, D.C. Zaid argues in the lawsuit that because Schnitt was unaware he was being recorded, it amounts to a personal conversation during an off-duty hours and is quintessential protected speech on a matter of public concern. The lawsuit calls Schnitt the victim of a complete setup and contends at least some of the recording violated D.C. law. Schnitt did not name O'Keefe, his media company, or Schuyler, the woman Schnitt spoke with on the video, as defendants. He was on a date, by the way. I don't know if you remember the history of women going undercover and going on dates with people and getting information, but this is what it felt reminiscent of. The lawsuit claims that the woman who identified herself to Schnitt as Schuyler is actually Dominique Phillips, a former marketing administrator at the conservative group Turning Point USA, which is crazy. This was a conservative trying to take him down. Mm-hmm. Now, Schnitt says in the lawsuit that he met Schuyler online dating platform Hinge, and a profile stated one thing she was eager to know about prospective dates was, and I quote, "What career are you in?" Schnitt's complaint says he met Schuyler for lunch in Alexandria, Virginia in August and was puzzled by the number of questions she asked him related to the Epstein files, but assumed it was simply because of the current prominence of the topic in the news. The two later had a second date in Washington.
Aw.
I know. Federal employees do not lose their privacy simply because they work for the U.S. government, nor do they forfeit their constitutional rights of free speech or to hold personal opinions. This is, again, the lawyer. Most importantly, this administration does not have the right to fire an employee without following proper due process protections. If there's one thing this administration doesn't follow, it's proper due process protections.
Yeah, I can confirm. I have some personal experience with that.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That is the hot notes. We're going to get to the good news, but first, my interview with Adam Klasfeld about the dismissed indictments against Jim Comey and Letitia James. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Breakdown on Substack and, of course, All Rise News on Substack as well. My name is Allison Gill. I'm here today with Adam Klasfeld because we just got a 1-2 punch knockout round. More knockout for Jim Comey than for Letitia James, but both of their cases have been dismissed because Lindsay Halligan was unlawfully appointed under 546 and under the Appointments Clause. And further addressed in these dismissals is Pamela Jo's attempt to get into a time machine, fire up the DeLorean, turn on the flux capacitor, and go back in time to appoint Lindsay Halligan properly under 3 other statutes. And also, it's important to note that these indictments have been dismissed without prejudice, despite Jim Comey and Letitia James asking for them to be dismissed with prejudice. And we'll discuss that as well. So please welcome Adam Klasfeld from All Rise News. Hi, Adam. How are you?
Doing well, Allison. What a way to start Thanksgiving week.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering, when this was going to come down, and also how it's going to impact some of the other motions to dismiss, particularly certain ones with prejudice that are being heard in by a different judge, right? So talk first about why Judge Curry from South Carolina was the one deciding these particular cases as opposed to any judge from the Eastern District of Virginia.
So the reason Judge Curry has this particular motion in front of her, has decided on the disqualification of Lindsay Halligan, is they needed someone outside of the Eastern District of Virginia. And this has been the case throughout. Just to take a big picture here, this is the 4th Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who has been ruled disqualified, unlawfully appointed, illegitimately serving in her position. She follows in the footsteps of Alina Habba in the District of New Jersey, Sigal Chattah in the District of Nevada, and Bill Asali in the Central District of California. This is the 4th Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in a row that when Trump chooses a loyalist to do his bidding outside the way that the Constitution prescribes and the U.S. Congress had prescribed in the Federal Vacancies Reform Act and other statutes that are applicable here, that this has to go to a judge outside the district because it is potentially a conflict of interest. And what a federal judge has found today, and has gone farther than any of those other federal judges who have disqualified those other Trump-appointed purported U.S. attorneys, she has found that because she was the only person, Lindsay Halligan, in the grand jury room, that the cases must be dismissed. You had mentioned a little earlier that they are going to be dismissed without prejudice. We'll see, which would technically give the government room to try again. But the plot thickens. Judge Curry says in the James Comey indictment, she tackles an argument that prosecutors brought forward that the statute of limitations has not told because the indictment that the government had argued that the statute of limitations clock was paused, that it hasn't lapsed because the indictment told it. And she writes in a footnote that an invalid indictment would not do that. So there will be more litigation on this issue. I'm not going to say that this definitively answers that question. But let's just even imagine a world where the statute of limitations has not expired for James Comey and that he isn't fully free and clear. Let's just imagine that world for a second. This ruling says that the case, if it were to be pursued, has to go through a valid U.S. attorney, one with the advice and consent of the Senate, or one who can pass muster from the judges of the Eastern District of Virginia. Now, we know that there was no willing prosecutor in that district who was willing to take up the cases either against Letitia James or James Comey. So yes, this is a dismissal without prejudice, but we know from this ruling that the way to do it lawfully, to appoint a U.S. attorney lawfully, might not be someone they would need to find someone both with the qualifications to get into that position and someone who's willing to take up these cases. And we found that these are mutually exclusive positions in the past.
Yeah, and the judge addresses the idea of dismissing without prejudice because of another aspect as well. The government had asserted that any dismissals should be without prejudice because for Mr. Comey, it comes nowhere close to showing flagrant misbehavior or substantial prejudice or the unavailability of a lesser sanction as required in a case called Bundy. And there are other motions to do that, but this judge has said those motions are not before me. My only thing that I'm ruling on here is whether she was appointed properly under the Appointments Clause in 546. But right. She goes on to say, and this is an interesting thing that I learned today. She says, I believe the Supreme Court's Appointment Clause jurisprudence provides the answer to the with or without prejudice question. In cases both Ryder and Lucia, the court essentially unwound the actions taken by the unconstitutionally appointed officer and restored the affected party, in this case, Jim Comey and Letitia James, restored the affected party to the position the party occupied before being subjected to the invalid acts.
Right.
So you can't do it with prejudice to send a message. I think what Comey was arguing here, she says, Comey urges me to exercise my supervisory powers and dismiss with prejudice. But that because to vindicate interests protected by the Appointments Clause and to deter the government from using unlawful appointments to effectuate retaliation against
right.
perceived political enemies. But that goes against the current Supreme Court precedent in a couple of cases, that you just unwind it to where Jim Comey was before the indictment happened, right? Before Lindsay Halligan indicted him. And something else that she brings up that I thought was kind of I noticed that most of the quotes from the Supreme Court she grabbed come from Clarence Thomas. And I also noted that one of the big points that she brought up, she quotes directly from United States v. Trump when Judge Eileen Cannon dismissed the case against Donald Trump in the classified documents situation. because Jack Smith was unlawfully, quote, unlawfully appointed. And she doesn't go into whether or not that's a bunch of BS that, that Jack Smith was appointed unlawfully or not, but that the remedy is to dismiss if you think that that person was unlawfully appointed. She quotes Trump saying, I conclude all actions following Halligan's defective appointment, including securing and signing Comey's indictment, constitute unlawful exercises of executive power and must be set aside. Quote, there is simply no alternative course to cure the unconstitutional problem. And that is a quote directly from the Trump case and the Trump dismissal. So not so much whether or not Jack Smith was lawfully appointed, because he was, more along the lines of, well, regardless of whether you think somebody was lawfully appointed or not, if you find that they're unlawfully appointed, the only remedy is to dismiss the case. And so she quoted the Trump case to do that.
And we can see that coming just weeks ago when she heard arguments on this position. As you know, I was down in federal court in Alexandria, Virginia for those arguments, and she put Trump's Department of Justice on the spot when she asked them point blank, was United States v. Trump wrongly decided? And that was a question. She was obviously referring to the appointment clause challenge against Jack Smith that ultimately dismissed the classified documents case. She asked whether Judge Cannon had it wrong. At first, the Trump prosecutor tried to dance around the question, saying, well, it's the Southern District of Florida. It's certainly not controlling. But eventually he had to try to disavow that ruling. So this is certainly an example of hoisted by your own petard. As it turns out that this defense strategy in Trump's criminal case, one of his most potent criminal cases, has turned out to potentially doom one of the cases in his retribution tour. So that's absolutely a great citation that you pointed out, Allison. I'll point out to another one. You had mentioned the DeLorean time machine, where Attorney General Pam Bondi had tried to retroactively ratify the actions of Lindsay Halligan. And I thought there was a very salient line from Judge Curry's ruling, where she rejects that proposition. She said that the ramifications of a conclusion that credited Attorney General Bondi's actions are extraordinary. It would mean that the government could send any private citizen off the street, attorney or not, into the grand jury room to secure an indictment, so long as the Attorney General gives her approval after the fact. That cannot be the law. And it reminds me of the oral arguments on this just a couple of weeks ago, where it was, I forget which of the attorneys, it might have been an attorney for James,
it was Abby Lowell.
It was Abby Lowell.
Elon Musk or Steve Bannon could go into the room. I knew exactly where you were going with that, because that's exactly what I thought when she said this cannot be the law.
Right. Because had she found the contrary, what would stop them from sending any other loyalist, as she says, attorney or not? Now, in this case, Lindsay Halligan is an attorney. She represents insurance companies in litigation, but it's her first rodeo inside any sort of Department of Justice, federal prosecutor, or any prosecutorial position. And she's saying that this cannot be the law. She cannot ratify that. It's very strong language there, and it definitely harkens back to that part of oral arguments where Abby Lowell rightly said, if this is proper, if this is legally acceptable, then you can have Elon Musk or Steve Bannon in the grand jury room going after Trump's enemies.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that it would completely moot the appointments clause of the Constitution. It would completely moot multiple statutes that have been passed by Congress, including 546, 515, 509, all of these laws that govern the appointment of a special prosecutor or U.S. attorney. There would be no need for advice and consent on confirming a U.S. attorney appointed by a president. It would unravel tons of statutes and law going back to and including the Constitution. She's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, I'm paraphrasing.
To just put this into perspective, we say things like the Appointments Clause, we say things like the Federal Vacancies Reform Act, even though this one is under a different statute that governs the appointment of 2 consecutive interim attorneys. And it's worth pointing out what these statutory and constitutional protections are for. And it's for cases just like this, that if someone is going to be appointed to a position of power where they're the top prosecutor of a district with the potential to take away your liberty, that individual must have the advice and consent of the Senate. This is what our Constitution mandates. So there's small d democratic accountability, because after this ruling, there's going to be a lot of commentary about this is a Democratic appointee. They're going to go after the judge. And let's talk about what this is all about. This is about the Appointments Clause. There's a reason why judges across the political spectrum have defended this principle in disqualifying now 4, count them, and there are more potentially coming with John Sarcone in the Northern District of New York. But that's the principle. Is there small d democratic accountability over top federal prosecutors of districts who have the potential to take away your liberty? And all of these federal judges across the political spectrum are answering yes. She is going a step farther, saying because Lindsay Halligan was the only person in the grand jury room, because it's only her signature, these documents, these indictments are invalid. But that's what the stakes are. That's what this, this is. Obviously, these indictments are being thrown out before a jury gets to see them. And the reason for that procedure is because the legitimacy of these prosecutors is so important that it's mentioned in the Constitution under the Appointments Clause that principal officers must have the advice and consent of the Senate, or under certain circumstances, the approval of the judges of the district. And one more point, so far as the politics of this goes, there was, and we've had this conversation before, that one of the key citations that Comey and James brought in these arguments came from Samuel Alito, when he was an Office of Legal Counsel attorney with the Department of Justice, that it was Samuel Alito who argued that you cannot have 2 interim U.S. attorneys in a row, which is exactly what happened in this case, where you had Eric Siebert, a conservative U.S. attorney with bipartisan approval, being pressured out because he would not bring this case. And therefore, they replaced him with a second interim attorney, Lindsay Halligan, first-time prosecutor. And that, Samuel Alito says, and to give a kind of sense of where this might go from here because of the inevitable appeals, Samuel Alito says that's impermissible.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of flag Martha's going to throw up on her flagpole next to try to combat that particular ruling. No take-backsies, but there are in the Supreme Court, as we know. Hello, Roe and Dobbs. But let's talk a little bit, just for a second, about the other. Let's focus on Comey here for a second. And I mean, Letitia James has other motions to dismiss as well for vindictive and selective prosecution. James Comey just filed one for grand jury misconduct. Does this moot those and stop them in their tracks, or is the door open to continue those because this judge dismissed without prejudice, which means that these cases can still be brought, although there's a bigger uphill climb for Comey because of the statute of limitations? But because that's still a possibility, can the courts, Judge Nachmanoff in the Eastern District of Virginia, continue to resolve the other motions to dismiss either with or without prejudice? Is that door open now with this without prejudice dismissal from Judge Curry?
I have never, in covering the courts for 2 decades, I've never seen a case where one viable and ultimately granted motion to dismiss raises a question of what to do with all those other potentially viable motions to dismiss. We'll see how the judges handle it. I think that right now there is no more U.S. v. Comey. There is no more U.S. v. James.
Right, it might be like if they bring charges anew that to somehow make it past the appointment stuff, then we can reopen these looks into grand jury misconduct. Because I'm asking because I personally want to know what went on in the grand jury room. Because I was like, please just wait to dismiss a little bit longer, make this slow. I want to know if there was grand jury malfeasance. I want to know if Nachmanoff believes that there's vindictive and selective prosecution. I want to know if the Braunston literal truth defense, which was another motion to dismiss, is valid. But if this goes away, it would make sense to me, legally speaking, from my understanding, and I have a very limited understanding of the law, but unless you're facing that harm, then there's no need to go into it. So I assume that this will just be dead until and unless it's revived, and then we can continue on with those other motions.
I would expect that's correct. Right now, the case is dismissed. There's no reason for the federal judges to opine on what other potential grounds might have prevailed had James Comey and Letitia James had the ability to pursue them. As a matter of fact, early next month, Letitia James was supposed to go to court in Norfolk, Virginia, to argue her motion to dismiss for vindictive prosecution. And it's important to note, as you noted, that this is dismissal without prejudice, but also important to note that in order to bring this case again, they will need to find a qualified prosecutor who is not unlawfully appointed to pursue this case, knowing all that we know now. And they did not find a career prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia willing to pursue this case. They're going to need to find someone qualified for this. So that's something that I'm going to absolutely ask legal experts in this field, former federal prosecutors. Can they, as they have done so far, bring a line prosecutor from out of district? We've had line prosecutors, assistant U.S. attorneys from the District of North Carolina, for example.
Right. That was my next question. Can an AUSA do this without a U.S. attorney above them?
And in this particular case, these particular assistant U.S. attorneys were supervised by Lindsay Halligan, who is unlawfully appointed. So I don't think just the fact that it is dismissal without prejudice doesn't mean that this is a procedural hiccup, that it will be easy for the Department of Justice to come back and try to indict again. They will need to get a grand jury to indict. It's worth remembering that the grand jury in Comey's case indicted by a razor-thin majority after being told by Lindsay Halligan that the burden of proof is somehow on James Comey, or that there is evidence, that they could assume that there is more evidence, better evidence that can come out at trial. And even then, a razor-thin majority of the grand jury voted to indict on 2 counts, rejecting the top count. And, we could talk about any other alleged procedural irregularities from evidence, the core of the case that was obtained potentially in violation of the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizure, that was obtained again in violation of the Sixth Amendment right to counsel because it may have been privileged information. That was the core of the case. So saying, okay, it was dismissed without prejudice because that's what Supreme Court precedent on appointments clause issues allows, doesn't mean it's going to be easy to indict again. So this is a significant defeat for the Department of Justice in both of these cases. With prejudice would have had more finality. Either way, there was going to be an appeal fated. I think that's a safe assumption. But this is a resounding ruling in Comey and Letitia James's favor.
Yeah, and also, I mean, just you mentioned all those defects. There was never even a vote on the final indictment,
Right.
for Jim Comey. What I in my justice dreams, I'm looking for, because Nachmanoff's going to have to come in and say all this, cancel the calendar, vacate all this stuff, everything is moot or whatever. He's going to have to come in and do some sort of finalization. And I'm hoping he's like, but I would have dismissed this on vindictive and selective for this reason. I would have dismissed this because there's no operative charging document. I would have dismissed this because Lindsay Halligan got the Constitution wrong and persuaded the grand jury. I would have dismissed this because the FBI guy is a walking taint bomb. That's what I'm hoping, but I don't think that we'll necessarily see that. Judges have the authority to do those kinds of things, but I don't know that we'll necessarily see anything short of just, everything's done, bye. Just a real quick couple of 2 sentences from Judge Nachmanoff and the judge in the Letitia James case. So we'll see what ends up happening. We'll cover it. I know you're going to cover it on All Rise News. I guess my last question is that bringing another indictment against Letitia James is more likely than bringing another one against Jim Comey because of the statute of limitations. But again, I think you've already answered this question. And like you said, we have to find out from legal experts whether AUSAs can do this without a U.S. attorney there and what that would even end up looking like. I mean, I imagine you can still bring indictments when somebody's appointment is pending, right? As a U.S. attorney. So we'll see what ends up happening. I know there will be appeals. I'm sure they will try to re-indict using the grace period rule, which I think Judge Curry already kind of slammed the door on. But maybe some other sort of savings provision that I don't know about because I'm not a lawyer. But we'll cover it and you'll cover it. And I thank you for taking the time today. And I hope everybody, if you get a chance, you subscribe to All Rise News. And if you have the means to financially support Adam's work, because he goes to the courthouses, he buys his own plane tickets, he gets his own hotel rooms because he doesn't have any corporate overlords paying for that type of stuff. So if you have the means, I know a lot of people don't right now, but if you do have the means to support independent media, I recommend that you do. Do you have any final thoughts on these two dismissals before we get out of here?
Only that, and thank you very much for that, Allison. Only that it would be very curious to learn whether there was ever an indictment against James Comey for the reasons that you said. The grand jury, the full grand jury, never saw what became the operative indictment. They saw what was essentially an edited version of the indictment that they were said to have voted on. That was a live issue before the court to have decided, but we will see whether any of that is resolved because the first one out the gate says case dismissed.
Yeah, and I'm just checking the docket one last time. Nope, all we still have is this. We don't have any more final statements from Judge Nachmanoff, but as soon as we do, you can bet that myself and All Rise News will bring them to you. Thank you so much, everybody, for jumping on and watching. I've written this up, and you can read the full ruling on my Substack at militiawrote.com, and I know that Adam Klasfeld has as well at All Rise News. So we appreciate your time, and we'll probably see you again soon. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Everybody, welcome back. It's time for the good news.
Who likes good news, everyone? Then good news, everyone.
Good news. And if you have any good news or some good trouble suggestions you'd like to send our way, any little bit of good news. It can be big or small. It can be recent or in the distant past, as long as it's a uplifting story or a funny story that we can all share in and microdose a little happiness. Please send it to us because we need it. You can also give a shout out to either yourself or a loved one, a government program that's helped you or a loved one or somebody that you know, or a shout out to maybe a small business that could use a boost, especially this holiday season, since we're not shopping at Amazon or Target or Home Depot. You can send that in as well. Also, food banks that could use a boost, or maybe a nonprofit that you know that you'd like to shine a light on. Anything at all. And to get your stuff read on the air, all you got to do is pay your pod pet tariff, which means really just attach a photo of anything. It really doesn't matter. But you can send your pet. Dana and I can try to guess the breed of your pet.
We're very good at that. We're not very good at that. We're very good at that.
We're very good. We're not at all very good. Send that, or if you an adoptable pet in your area, if you want to see if we can help find a home for some little pet in need. You can also do bird watching photos, which is a bird, or you and your family and friends flipping the bird to Trump buildings. We love those. Or just, your happy place or something you're making or creating, some great signs at rallies you've been to. Maybe you were at the Remove the Regime rally and you want to share some photos like we had yesterday. Maybe what you dressed up for Halloween, your happy place, what you're growing in your garden, anything, seriously, anything at all. Send it to us, dailybeanspod.com, and click on contact. First up is Your Good Trouble. Your Good Trouble comes from Bob today. Upset about the Trump appeasement peace plan for Ukraine? Use the 2 links in our show notes and or call the White House on Monday during office hours, well, Tuesday at this point. Appeasement is not peace. Contact us, the White House, and we'll again have links in the show notes, or you can call 202-456-1111. Thank you for that good trouble, Bob. Also, there's still plenty of ways to phone bank or canvass for Aftyn Behn. That's in the special election for Tennessee's 7th Congressional District. We'll keep including the link to that phone bank stuff on mobilize.us in our show notes as well. Check the dates to see what worked for you. They're offering training as well, so you don't have to be worried if you've never done it. I have phone banked and I have done ballot curing. And at first it seems kind of intimidating, but once you get into it, man, it feels good to make a difference.
Absolutely. Thanks, Allison. All right. This one's from Susan, pronouns she and her. I listened to your shout out for baby pictures for Dana, and it reminded me that I have a great one to share. My 3-month-old grandson visited for the first time at our house, and my dog fell in love. She has never seen a little baby before, and she couldn't get enough of him. The baby doesn't have a dog, and the feeling was mutual. Oh my goodness. I wish they didn't live so far away, but we really enjoyed this time with him. Thanks for keeping me informed and encouraging us to find the joy. Here is one of mine. Bet you can guess the breed. Look at that poodle.
Oh, look at the baby. It's a mini golden doodle.
Sure looks like it.
Oh, and the sweet baby is a human person. That's the breed of that sweet little baby. Susan.
More babies for Dana.
Yep. I called for it yesterday while you were gone. I wanted to.
Oh, thank you for that.
See if we could get some baby pictures. And we got another one from anonymous, pronouns she and they. I just wanted to share my excitement with the Beans Queens. I found out last week that Dr. Amy Acton is running for governor of Ohio next year. As a nurse, a single mom, and an Ohioan, I know she could do much good here. Pod tariff below, my 18-year-old as a baby, and my 16-year-old shelter dog, with many breeds mixed in. I'm sure you could guess at least one. Look at the eyes on this baby. Oh my goodness.
Beautiful.
All right, so the dog, what do you think? Rottweiler, Lab, Boxer, Beagle, Hound Dog?
Yeah.
Chow Chow?
Sure.
Greyhound watched? Let's see what we got.
Sounds good.
Staffy, Shar-Pei, Poodle, Dachshund, and German Shepherd. I got 0.
I just let you go. I was like, all right, we'll see where this goes.
I got 0. I can see the Shar-Pei in the muzzle now that you mention it.
Oh my gosh. All right. This is from Wing Commander, no pronouns given. For my overactive imagination and a few good men testimony from the Sandwich Guy trial in D.C. Sandwich Guy. Sean Dunn. You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has democracy, and those democracies have to be guarded by men with sandwiches. Who's going to do it? You? Kash Patel? You? Pam Bondi? Real Americans have a greater responsibility than you could possibly fathom. You weep for CPB. You curse the immigrants. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know. That Sandwich Guy probably saves lives. in my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives. You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me with a sandwich. You need me with a sandwich. You use words like freedom, rights, rule of law. We use words like as the backbone of democracy. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a sandwich and attend a protest. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you're entitled to.
Yay.
Thank you. I just want everyone to know that was the first time I saw the submission, and I think it was a pretty good reading.
That was fantastic reading and amazing. Thank you, Wing Commander.
That was awesome.
Next up, Nancy from Virginia, pronouns she and her. I was at the Remove the Regime rally in D.C. Saturday. Great rally, good people. Harry Dunn did a great job motivating the crowd. And we did some great bird watching too. Oh, look at this great photo. Yeah, flip that bird.
Love it.
Oh, look at all those people. Bigger than Orange Man's
I know.
inauguration for sure.
Yes,
That was a
so
short one, so
yeah,
I'm going
keep
to
it
take
going.
the second one. From Joe, pronouns he and him. My wife and I, both teachers, Joe, thank you, and your wife for your service, have managed to save up enough money for a small teardrop camper. Oh, I got the chills. I love those. We picked it up last June and spent 2 glorious weeks in Yellowstone National Park. The geothermal features were spectacular. The wildlife was awesome. And without any phone signal, we had no clue what Trump was up to. It was pure bliss and a welcome reboot from a hard school year and harder election results. Of course, we got all caught up on the drive back home, in part thanks to your shows, which always give us the best explanations of what's really happening. The one thing that was a pleasant surprise during our trip was all the international tourists we saw, even in the midst of Mango Mussolini's deconstruction of our democracy. People were still visiting our country. Gives me some hope for the future. For the pet pod tax, I submit a picture we took of Pika. I think I'm saying that right. Or Pika. These little relatives of rabbits live in rock piles at very high altitudes. We had to sit still and wait until they got used to us, but it was worth the wait. Thanks for all you do. Look at this thing. I want one. Where do I get a Pika? Thank you so much. And thanks for all your work that you do, Joe, and your spouse.
These are amazing, those babies. All right, this is from KH. Wow, not KH, because that's not what it says, everyone. It says KH, but when you're going that fast, that's what comes out of your mouth. This is from KH in San Antonio, Texas, pronounced she and her. Greetings, Beans Queens. I have a minor correction. On Friday, you mentioned nurse anesthetists.
I figured it. It's anesthetists.
Yeah. There you go. It is generally pronounced anesthetists, but frequently we refer to as CRNAs. This is just short, certified registered nurse anesthetists. Though our governing body is now promoting the nomenclature nurse
anesthesiologists?
Oh my God, Dana. The both of us together, we can get that. Anesthesiologist, well done. It's very expensive degree to obtain, though if you want to become a CRNA and aren't sure how to pay for it, you can always join the Army, like I did. Shout out to Army CRNAs. Liz and Kathy, I know you're listening. I want to apologize for not being able to pronounce anesthesiologist. For the pod pet tariff, please accept my recently completed botanical illustration of a fall leaf. It has been my preferred method of disassociation for weeks now. Also, my dog breed, Ruby, who saw the beach for the first time this weekend. Thanks so much for all you do. Is Ruby a lab?
Rudy? Looks like a lab or
pointer?
Maybe a skipper key or something. Let's see. Irish setter.
Neither.
Yeah, I think it's because I can't see the color. If I could see the redness of that baby. Look at this leaf. You drew this?
That's amazing.
It looks real.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, I did not.
Goodness.
Yeah. Look at the shadowing. That's fucking brilliant.
I have no idea why I couldn't get anesthetist out. I worked in a hospital for over a decade, but just totally. I'm all anesthetist.
Well, you saw me with anesthesiologist right now. I mean, I've said that word a million times. I just don't know how many times I've read it.
I know. All right, next up from Sarah, no H, pronouns she and her. Good news. The very next day after the Good Trouble segment aired about advocating for nursing as a skilled profession, a colleague got this message from Tammy.Abernathy at Department of Education in all caps to stop emailing about nurses. She states that in the coming months, there will be a portal to comment. Coincidence? I think not. Here is the email from Tammy Abernathy regarding protect graduate nursing education as a professional degree. Tammy says, thank you for emailing about the definition of professional student. Please do not encourage additional writers to contact the department about the definition of professional student at this time. Once the NPRM is published, the public will have 30 days to submit a comment. So I guess we maybe made a dent.
Someone seems mad.
Seems like we're pissing off Tammy. Tammy.Abernathy.
Tammy, I'm so sorry.
That's TAMY.ABERNATHY at Department Depth of Education. Feel free to reach out to Tammy. Please do not encourage additional writers. Guess what, motherfucker? I'm encouraging additional writers.
Oh, so much joy. All right, this is from Tony, pronouns he and him. Dear loquacious ladies of the Leguminati, just a short one today. Last Thursday, I went to Akron Transgender Day of Remembrance in the Cascade Valley Metro Parks. It was sponsored by TransJoy Akron. About 40 people gathered for fellowship, poetry, song, and tributes to transgender people taken from us this past year. We had a nice fire going, and at the end of the evening, we all took little paper packets and wrote the names of people we will miss on them, and in silence, we placed them in the fire. The packets contained metallic salts that burned purple, green, blue, and yellow. It was deeply moving. It's good to hang out with normal people every now and again to remind myself that I'm not crazy. Today, Saturday, I joined the regular protest at the Memorial Park in Alliance. About 20 people were there today, and it was just windy enough to give the big flag collection a bit of a stretch. My real motivation for writing today will become clear when you look at the second picture that I've attached. Love always, Tony.
Tony with the flags.
Oh my God, that picture.
Quiet piggy, and it's Donald Trump's head on a pig body.
It sure is.
Akron, woohoo, OH. That's where everybody listening
I-O.
in their cars, yells back, I-O. What a great set of good news submissions. Thank you so much, everybody, for sending these in. Please continue to send them in. Please continue to write Tammy Abernathy at the Department of Education.
Oh, my God. So good.
Don't encourage writers. Oh, well, you know what? You said the magic words. You said the magic words, my friend. Everybody, I appreciate all of these good news submissions. And just a little bit of a heads up. I gave this heads up yesterday. I'll be putting the beans out through the holiday this weekend. There'll be an episode of Unjustified as well. There'll be a bonus for the cleanup on aisle 45. There'll be an episode of cleanup on Wednesday too. But our video Beans Talk experiment ends this Wednesday night. So we'll be dark Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, Dana, we go public, and we go public way more prepared than we would otherwise be because of our amazing patrons who gave us all the incredible feedback that we got.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we got some incredible feedback, some other feedback. We won't mention any names, but some of you, we appreciate you listening. Definitely opinionated, but we heard all of you. And, sometimes they say, don't read the comments section. So, but the rest, we do really love the feedback. Everyone, there's no way we're going to make everyone happy with this. And I want you to remember that. So I hope that some of your feedback that you were like, hey, can you just tweak that little logo or tweak that little thing or what have you? We did those things. We're going to make it great. But most of you love the content, and that's what we're going to keep doing.
Yep. And this show, your Daily Beans, your audio Daily Beans podcast, which we refer to as the Long Beans now, doesn't change. It will never change. Well, I mean, I never say never, but it's not changing because of this new show. So to the person who suggested we stop being funny, that's not going to, we're not going to stop doing
Thank you.
that.
I didn't want to be the one to say it. You're listening to two comedians.
But we do appreciate all of your feedback, and the way that it was presented was great as well. So thank you, everybody. We will be back in your ears tomorrow. Until then, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health, and take care of your family. I've been AG.
I've been DG.
And them's the beans.
The Daily Beans is written and executive produced by Allison Gill, with additional research and reporting by Dana Goldberg. Sound design and editing is by Desiree McFarlane, with art and web design by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios. Music for The Daily Beans is written and performed by They Might Be Giants, and the show is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, please visit mswmedia.com.
MSW Media.